You're listening to the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. It's fast, fun, free, daily deep dive Bible, and right now we're working on the book of Nehemiah. If you're new, welcome. You can jump in right here, or you can always go back and start at the beginning of any season. The whole podcast is available in an easy-to-use format at thetmbh.com.
I watched Pulp Fiction the other day. I don't recommend it because it's just, we've talked about this. I don't want to pick, I don't know. We have whatever, different sense. Watch the things that make sense for you. But I watched Pulp Fiction. It's from 1994. And I was blown away by how long the credits went. Now, fortunately, the music was great and it had just enough quirk that I could work with that old throwback to mountains of credits before anything happens in a movie. But that was sort of the end of it. After Pulp Fiction, they went to getting right into the show. We're giving you something on the front end, or at least giving you action with credits over the top of that. And now you tend to just jump right into a movie, and then you get a cool opening credits sequence. That doesn't always work because some of the prologues are boring and they don't know what to do with the prologue. But I'm telling you, my friends, some people in the age of post-open with just boring words on screen credits and the age of have a prologue to get the audience enticed, oh boy, do they know what they're doing. Prime example, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. That's the one from 2011. I have no idea what number that is. They got 7 of those, 8 of? They have a lot of Mission Impossibles, and they're all really good. No, that's not true. The one with all the dubs, the John Woo one, I didn't like that one very much. But Ghost Protocol, it's great. And do you remember this prologue? Because it just lights the room on fire. That's actually kind of what happens in the prologue. I was being metaphorical, but that literally happens too. It's the one that opens in the Russian prison, and Ethan Hunt is in there, and Simon Pegg is working the computers, and they're clearly going to break him out. And to break him out, they put on this Dean Martin song, and they play it through, and that's the countdown. So you got to get out of there before the Dean Martin song's over. And they start letting all the Russian prisoners out, and they're having a big Russian prison brawl. And Ethan Hunt's got to make his way through the prison, fighting people, rescuing another prisoner, and they get out into this subterranean tunnel system beneath the prison, and Ethan Hunt looks at his team as they're ready to go and says, "Light the fuse." And then they light the fuse, and it follows the fuse, and that's so iconic, and it's so great. And I remember how I felt when I watched that for the first time. It's also how I felt when I watched it for the last time recently, which was, I'm so in. I get it. I see the vision for this. I know enough about where this is going. This is going to be a great ride. We're going to have a blast. Likewise, Nehemiah opens with a killer prologue. And yeah, to fully appreciate it, you and I have taken quite a bit of time to bounce all over the Old Testament, to basically look at the prequels and understand all the things that you got to understand in the lore to fully get and appreciate what is happening in this prologue. But once you get it, you totally see it. And then all of that complexity of the prologue that might make your head start to spin a little bit boils all the way down to one sentence at the end of the chapter that is basically your light the fuse moment in the whole thing. Of course, the prologue opens with Nehemiah. He's just doing his thing. He's working in the citadel in Susa, and then he gets ill tidings from these messengers who show up after a long, harrowing journey. It looks like the messengers don't even want to wait to get rested up and food. They want to deliver the desperate message right now. Things are not good in Jerusalem. The walls are torn down. The gates have been burned. And Nehemiah is staggered by this information. He thinks and reflects on it, and then he puts together this super ordered, very sincere prayer that I can imagine being shot in some sort of stone cell with blue light, but the blue light is cut through with gold light coming through one tiny little narrow ancient stone window in some back corner, back room of the citadel in Susa, and it illuminates Nehemiah's face, demonstrating with the half-lit, half-obscured face that he's torn and conflicted about things. And as the prayer moves from movement number 1, acknowledging his own shortcomings and the problem, to movement number 2, where he reminds God of all of the prequels and everything that happened up to this point, to movement number 3, where he decides that he's determined and he's going to take action. I imagine that gold light moving from just a little sliver that illuminates just one eye and part of his cheek, all the way to lighting up his whole face as the dawn starts to consume the room. He gets up with determination. Maybe we get some sort of quick reaction shot of that determination as he pops up off the ground and reaches back down to grab some sort of signet or symbol or sash or marker of the prominent position he holds. He snatches it up off the ground. The dust flies. And as he walks out of this little prayer cell and pulls the heavy wooden and metal door shut, he voices over the final line of the prologue, Nehemiah 1:12, I was cupbearer to the king. Light the fuses. Bop, 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 bop. And I'm in. I'm so in. Because as this thing is unfolding, look, they withhold that information from you. You don't get to know who this guy is in Nehemiah 1 until the last line of the prologue at the end of Nehemiah 1. Who is this guy? The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. Okay, he has a dad. Well, a lot of people do. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa. Okay, well, why are you there? Are you a prisoner? Are you a tourist? Are you some sort of artisan? I mean, why are you there? I mean, it's a fancy place, but if you just heard from some random guy and they said, I'm in Paris, you wouldn't assume that they were the king of France or the right-hand man of the king of France. And so we're looking at all of this. He gets the report and we hear this passionate prayer, and as readers, if we don't know going in, we're like, well, who's this guy? And why is he taking this so hard? And what is he going to do about it anyway? Truly, in the form of all great prologues, they don't give you all the information at once. You have to get oriented to the setting. And so we get to the end of the prayer, coming up on the very last line of the prologue, and we're like, dang, this is a really determined, really smart, really honest, really introspective, really big picture, action-oriented guy. But how is he going to do anything about a problem this big? And that's when we get the I was cupbearer to the king. Light the fuse. And from that moment, if it's our first time going through Nehemiah, and especially for the original audience, they're reading this and they don't know the story. They know what a cupbearer to the king is. You and I just haven't had one of those for a really long time. I don't have a cupbearer. Nobody I know has a cupbearer. I don't know. Does the president have a cupbearer? Maybe. I think that would probably be a good idea. And a lot of people might want to do mean things to somebody that powerful. Maybe they have secret cupbearers, but it's just not something we think of. We don't understand the role. But for the original audience, I think they all would have been like, buckle up, homies. And then, they're watching the metaphorical opening credits sequence with cool music and the action moves and everything, and they know exactly what's going to happen in the rest of the movie. This guy has both the character and the position to do something about this problem. The conflict is established. The protagonist, his character, his assets are now well known, and we already know what the next point of tension is going to be. He's going to go talk to the king and leverage his position to see if he can make this problem into his problem. And I think it is so dynamic and so good and so interesting. And in the same way that Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Tom Cruise says, light the fuse. And my heart says, I'm in, I'm along for the ride. So I think this prologue inspires the same kind of excitement about maybe, just maybe, if we've been following this story through all the prequels and the lore and the stuff that came before it, maybe finally things are going to get fixed back in Jerusalem. But it's not going to be easy. Nehemiah 2 next time around. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.